Joining me now, Sports Illustrated senior writer Chris Mannix, host of 2 podcasts. Where can we find those podcasts, by the way?
Crossover NBA podcast and Chris Boxing with Chris Mannix, part of the Volume Sports Podcast Network.
Okay, fantastic. Congratulations on that, by the way. I know you and Colin Cowherd joining up is a big deal. Let's jump into our first question here and talk about the NBA for just a couple of minutes while we have you, Chris. Let's start with Kawhi Leonard. Not going to be able to win a championship this year. Their bid coming to an end courtesy of the Phoenix Suns. But Kawhi Leonard is a free agent this offseason. What does his future hold? Will he be back with the Clippers?
Well, Kawhi Leonard has a player option for next season, and whether he picks it up or not, he does have the Clippers kind of over a barrel here. The Clippers mortgaged their future effectively to acquire Kawhi Leonard a couple of years ago, giving up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a blue chip prospect, moving many of their draft picks over the next 6 years to bring him in. So the Clippers have to bring him back. Now, the wild card in all this is the injury to Kawhi Leonard. Nobody really knows, as we record this, just how significant that knee injury is. But whether it requires surgery or not, whether it will bleed into next season or not, the Clippers are effectively going to have to do whatever it is Kawhi wants them to do, because they can't roll the dice, risk him opting out, becoming a free agent, and signing elsewhere. That would simply be devastating for that franchise.
The biggest storyline arguably heading into the NBA Finals is Chris Paul finally getting the championship ring that has eluded him for so long. He's been unlucky. He's been snake bitten. He's played for so many teams. What would this championship mean to Chris Paul?
I think it would cement him as a top 5 point guard in NBA history. And you're right, Chris Paul has been unlucky at times. Just a few years ago, the Houston Rockets with Chris Paul were up 3-2 on Golden State. Paul strained his hamstring, missed the last 2 games of that series. And as we know, Golden State won and went on to the finals. He's had bad luck in LA before, blowing a 3-1 series lead in the second round. And, this year for Chris Paul, really the last 2 years, I think have been 2 of the finest seasons in Chris's career. I mean, he's had better numbers, but to go to Oklahoma City and push that team, which just lost Russell Westbrook and Paul George, into the playoffs as the number 6 seed was a remarkable accomplishment. To come to Phoenix, where the Suns haven't sniffed the playoffs in about a decade, and to take them to the finals, that's an accomplishment. So for Chris Paul to culminate this season, this 2-year run with a championship, it would be among the better accomplishments for an individual player that we've really seen over the last 20 years.
Lastly for you, Chris, Chauncey Billups being hired in Portland, how does that affect Damian Lillard?
I don't think it affects him too much. Damian Lillard seems to be sending a lot of signals out that he's ready to go elsewhere, whether it was several Instagram posts that have been kind of cryptic of nature, his public declaration that he wanted Jason Kidd to be the next head coach. I think the Blazers are hoping that hiring Chauncey, who has been a well-respected player over the course of his career, will be something that will appease Damian Lillard. But Lillard, at 31 years old, I think is looking at this Blazers roster and saying, can I win here over the next few years? And it's hard to see a scenario where that's possible. Certainly the Blazers will nibble on the edges with their roster to try to bring in guys that can push them even higher. But if you look at the Western Conference, it's loaded next year. The Lakers are going to be back. The Clippers are going to be back. The Jazz and Suns are rising teams. There are some younger teams beneath them that are going to be making a run. It's tough to envision a championship happening in Portland. And for Lillard, even though he has been completely devoted to the city and to the organization, I think he's at the point where he wants to find a way to compete for a championship while he's still in his prime. So there's a long way to go before all this is settled, but I think there's going to have to be a frank conversation between Damian Lillard and Trailblazers management and ownership about what his future really holds.
All right, Chris Mannix, senior writer at Sports Illustrated. We appreciate it. Thanks.
You got it.